When the Galactic Empire sent their scouting ships to a distant blue planet tucked away in the outer rim of the galaxy, they expected another easy conquest. The Empire had expanded its reach to hundreds of worlds, each one falling with little resistance. They had never encountered a species that could stand against their advanced technology and unmatched military might. But Earth was different. The first indication that Earth was not like other planets came from the initial scans. The data was confusing. Earth's surface was a mosaic of terrains, bustling cities, sprawling farmlands, dense forests, and expansive oceans. Unlike the usual resource-focused civilizations, Earth's inhabitants seemed to value diversity and creativity over uniformity. The scout ship sensors detected thousands of languages, countless cultural expressions, and a baffling array of communication methods. It was as if Earth's people thrived on complexity and contradiction. Commander Treelan, the leader of the scout mission, watched the live feed of Earth's broadcasts with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. The humans, as they called themselves, seemed oddly fragile. They lacked the physical strength of many conquered species and didn't possess any visible natural defenses. And yet, they were everywhere, filling the planet to its edges. Their inventions, though primitive by galactic standards, were clever, and their societies, though chaotic, seemed to function in a way that defied the Empire's logic. "They're resilient," Treelan murmured, leaning closer to the holographic display. A particular broadcast caught his attention. A group of humans, standing amidst the ruins of what seemed to be a natural disaster, were helping each other rebuild. Their faces showed exhaustion but also determination and compassion. "Resilience won't save them from us," remarked Lieutenant Vexer, a younger officer standing at Treelan's side. His voice carried the overconfidence typical of those who had never faced defeat. "Once we deploy the pacification units, they'll fall in line like all the others." Treelan nodded absent-mindedly, though doubt lingered in his mind. The humans' unity in the face of adversity was something he had not seen before. On other planets, fear of the Empire's wrath had splintered populations. Here, fear seemed to bring them together. The scout ship's first physical encounter with Earth was equally perplexing. When the Empire's drones entered the atmosphere, they expected panic. Instead, humans responded with curiosity and ingenuity. Amateur radio operators intercepted alien signals and began broadcasting friendly messages. Civilians pointed telescopes skyward, trying to catch a glimpse of the mysterious visitors. Governments deployed scientific probes rather than military defenses, seemingly more interested in understanding the newcomers than fighting them. "They don't see us as a threat," Vexer scoffed during the mission briefing. "That will be their undoing." Treelan's gaze lingered on a feed showing children playing in a park as the drone hovered overhead. "Or perhaps it's their strength," he said quietly. The Empire's initial attempt to assert dominance came in the form of a standard display of power, disabling Earth's communication satellites. It was a strategy that had worked countless times before, plunging civilizations into chaos. But on Earth, something unexpected happened. Within hours, humans had improvised solutions. Amateur radio enthusiasts created ad hoc communication networks. Local communities stepped up to share information. Rather than collapsing, Earth systems adapted and thrived. "They're like a hive," Vexer muttered, watching in frustration. "You cut one line of communication, and a dozen others spring up in its place." "Not a hive," Treelan corrected. "A web. Fragile in places but incredibly hard to break entirely." The next phase of the Empire's plan was to test Earth's military capabilities. A small contingent of Imperial fighters was sent to disable key infrastructure. The result was another surprise. While Earth's weaponry was outdated by galactic standards, their tactics were innovative. Human pilots demonstrated remarkable creativity, using terrain, weather, and even psychological warfare to their advantage. They fought not just with technology but with sheer determination and an uncanny ability to adapt. They're not fighting to win, Treelan observed during a debriefing. They're fighting to protect their homes, their families, their way of life. That kind of motivation is hard to crush. Vexor frowned. Motivation won't stop the Empire. We'll overwhelm them eventually. But Treelan wasn't so sure. Every encounter with Earth revealed another layer of complexity. The humans weren't just resilient, they were deeply interconnected, their strength rooted in their relationships and their shared sense of purpose. As the scout mission continued, Treelan began to question the Empire's approach. The standard methods of conquest, fear, division, and brute force, seemed ill-suited for a species like humans. Their spirit couldn't be broken because it wasn't centralized. It existed in every individual, in every community, in every act of kindness and defiance. One day, as the scout ship orbited Earth, Treelan stood alone in the observation deck, watching the planet rotate below. He thought of the broadcasts he had seen, the acts of courage and compassion, the way humans seemed to find beauty in even the darkest moments. "Commander?" Vexor's voice broke the silence. "The fleet is ready for the final phase. Shall we proceed?" Treelan turned slowly, his expression unreadable. He glanced once more at the blue and green world below, then at Vexor. "Hold the fleet," he said finally. "I need more time to understand them." "Understand them?" Vexor echoed, bewildered. "Why? They're just another conquest." "No," Treelan said, his voice firm. "They're not. They're something we've never encountered before. And if we don't learn from them, we might be the ones who fall." As the days passed, the scout team continued their observations. Treelan's growing fascination with Earth's people deepened with every new discovery. One evening, while reviewing footage, he stumbled upon something unexpected, a human gathering they called a festival. Unlike the utilitarian events common in the Empire, this celebration was purely for joy. Lights twinkled, music echoed, and people danced freely, laughing as though they carried no burdens. "Commander," Vexor said, stepping into the observation room. "The Council is requesting an update. They're impatient." Treelan sighed, gesturing toward the hologram. "Have you ever seen anything like this? Look at them. They celebrate without reason, as if every moment is a gift." "It's inefficient," Vexor replied, crossing his arms. "This indulgence makes them weak." "Does it?" Treelan countered, raising an eyebrow. "Or does it make them strong in a way we can't quantify?" Vexor didn't reply immediately, his usual bravado faltering. The images of humans laughing, hugging, and sharing stories stirred something he couldn't quite name. Despite his own doubts, Vexor reported back to the Council with confidence, recommending swift action. But Treelan's hesitation lingered, a quiet rebellion growing within him. As he continued to watch, it became clear, the humans were teaching him what it meant to be truly alive. The Council's impatience grew by the day. Messages from the fleet became more frequent, each one demanding progress. But Treelan couldn't bring himself to give the order for invasion. Instead, he tasked his crew with deeper observations of Earth's people and their ways of life. One night, a transmission came through that caught the attention of the entire crew. It was a live broadcast of a human addressing a crowd. The individual stood on a makeshift stage, speaking with passion and urgency. They spoke of unity, hope, and the importance of standing together in the face of adversity. The words were simple, yet they carried a power that resonated even with the alien crew. "They're preparing for us," Vexor said, though his tone lacked its usual edge. "They know we're watching." Treelan shook his head. "No. This isn't for us. This is for them. They're reminding themselves of who they are and what they stand for." Vexor frowned but said nothing more. He seemed to be struggling with his own thoughts, the once unshakable confidence in the Empire's methods now showing cracks. The next day, Treelan made an unprecedented decision. He ordered the scout ship to land, not for conquest, but for contact. The crew was stunned. Landing on a planet without military support was unheard of. It was risky, potentially disastrous. But Treelan was resolute. "We've observed enough from a distance," he told them. "It's time to meet them face to face." The landing site was carefully chosen, a remote area away from major cities but close enough to observe human reactions. As the ship descended, the crew braced themselves for hostility. But what greeted them was something entirely different. A small group of humans had gathered, holding signs with messages of peace and welcome. Some waved, while others simply watched in awe. Treelan stepped out first, his posture calm and unthreatening. The humans didn't flee. Instead, one of them stepped forward, offering a hand in what seemed to be a gesture of goodwill. Treelan hesitated, then reached out, mimicking the gesture. The human's face lit up with a smile, and in that moment, something shifted. "Commander," Vexor said quietly, standing behind him. "What are we doing?" "Learning," Treelan replied. "And perhaps, unlearning." For the first time in his career, Treelan felt a glimmer of something he couldn't name, but it felt like hope. The moment Treelan clasped the human's hand, the atmosphere shifted. There was no hostility, no fear. Instead, an unspoken understanding seemed to pass between them. The human, an older individual with lines etched deeply into their face, spoke softly, their words unfamiliar but their tone warm. Treelan didn't need a translator to grasp the meaning behind their gesture. It was a welcome. Behind him, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. Vexor's hand hovered near his holster, his expression a mixture of doubt and disbelief. The Empire's protocols demanded swift and decisive action, yet here they were, standing on foreign soil without a weapon raised. The human group moved closer, their curiosity evident. A young child stepped forward, their eyes wide with wonder. They pointed at Treelan's uniform, chattering excitedly. Treelan crouched slightly, meeting the child's gaze. He reached into a compartment on his suit and retrieved a small metallic orb. Activating it, he projected a shimmering image of a star system into the air. The humans gasped in awe. The child reached out, their fingers brushing the hologram as it swirled and shifted. Laughter rippled through the group, and soon others were stepping closer, their initial hesitance replaced by fascination. "What are you doing, Commander?" Vexor asked, his voice low and edged with frustration. "This isn't protocol." "No, it's not," Treelan replied, his gaze never leaving the humans. "But perhaps protocol isn't what we need right now." For hours, the crew and the humans exchanged gestures and attempts at communication. The humans brought food, placing it on the ground as an offering. Treelan hesitated before accepting a small piece, its flavor unfamiliar but surprisingly pleasant. In turn, the crew shared small tokens from their own world. U-2014, a glowing crystal, a fragment of an Empire starship, a vial of shimmering liquid that seemed to contain light itself. The night of their first contact left a profound impact on Treelan and his crew. While the humans continued their celebration, Treelan remained on the outskirts, observing. The warmth of their firelight illuminated faces full of hope and curiosity. It was impossible to reconcile these people with the image of a species that needed to be subdued. In the days that followed, a tentative rapport began to form. The humans, through gestures and shared experiences, sought to communicate. One of the younger humans drew crude symbols in the dirt, attempting to convey ideas. Treelan's crew reciprocated, using their advanced holographic projectors to depict their star charts and history. A silent exchange of knowledge began, each side eager to learn from the other. One particular encounter stood out. A human elder approached Treelan one morning, carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. The elder opened it carefully to reveal a set of hand-carved figurines, small representations of animals and people. They placed the figures in a circle on the ground, then gestured to Treelan, pointing first at the carvings and then to the sky. "They're showing us their story," Treeland said softly to Vexor, who stood nearby with arms crossed. "Why? What purpose does it serve?" Vexor asked, his tone a mix of frustration and confusion. "Because it's who they are," Treeland replied. "They want us to understand them beyond our scans and observations. They want us to see their humanity." The elders' demonstration continued as they pointed to the figurines one by one, miming actions that depicted stories of survival, conflict, and unity. The crew watched in silence, captivated by the simplicity yet depth of the display. When the elder finished, they handed one of the figures to Treeland, a small carving of a bird in mid-flight. Later, as Treeland held the figure in his hands, he found himself reflecting on its meaning. The bird, free, unrestrained, soaring through the skies, was a symbol of something he had never considered, a species' right to exist on its own terms. For the first time in his life, Treeland began to question the Empire's motives. Were they truly bringing order to the galaxy, or were they extinguishing the very uniqueness that made life worth living? That night, Treeland called a meeting with his crew. Vexor was the first to speak, his frustration evident. "We've delayed long enough. The Empire expects results, not philosophical debates. And what if the results we deliver are different than what they expect?" Treeland countered. "What if our mission is not to conquer, but to learn?" The room fell silent. The crew, conditioned to obey orders without question, now found themselves grappling with a leader who dared to defy convention. Treeland knew he was risking everything, his command, his career, even his life. But the thought of erasing a species as vibrant and resilient as the humans felt like a betrayal of the galaxy itself. "Commander," Vexor said after a long pause. "You can't possibly believe the Council will accept this." "Perhaps not," Treeland admitted. "But perhaps they need to." As the meeting adjourned, Treeland stood alone, looking out at the night sky. In his hands, he held the wooden bird, its wings outstretched as if ready to take flight. For the first time, he felt a sense of purpose that wasn't dictated by the Empire, a purpose born from understanding, empathy, and hope. When the Galactic Empire sent their scouting ships to a distant blue planet tucked away in the outer rim of the galaxy, they expected another easy conquest. The Empire had expanded its reach to hundreds of worlds, each one falling with little resistance. They had never encountered a species that could stand against their advanced technology and unmatched military might. But Earth was different. The first indication that Earth was not like other planets came from the initial scans. Earth's surface was a mosaic of terrains, bustling cities, sprawling farmlands, dense forests, and expansive oceans. Unlike the usual resource-focused civilizations, Earth's inhabitants seemed to value diversity and creativity over uniformity. The scout ship sensors detected thousands of languages, countless cultural expressions, and a baffling array of communication methods. It was as if Earth's people thrived on complexity and contradiction. Commander Treeland, the leader of the scout mission, watched the live feed of Earth's broadcasts with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. The humans, as they called themselves, seemed oddly fragile. They lacked the physical strength of many conquered species and didn't possess any visible natural defenses. And yet, they were everywhere, filling the planet to its edges. Their inventions, though primitive by galactic standards, were clever, and their societies, though chaotic, seemed to function in a way that defied the Empire's logic. "They're resilient," Treeland murmured, leaning closer to the holographic display. A particular broadcast caught his attention. A group of humans, standing amidst the ruins of what seemed to be a natural disaster, were helping each other rebuild. Their faces showed exhaustion but also determination and compassion. "Resilience won't save them from us," remarked Lieutenant Vexor, a younger officer standing at Treeland's side. His voice carried the overconfidence typical of those who had never faced defeat. "Once we deploy the pacification units, they'll fall in line like all the others." Treeland nodded absent-mindedly, though doubt lingered in his mind. The humans' unity in the face of adversity was something he had not seen before. On other planets, fear of the Empire's wrath had splintered populations. Here, fear seemed to bring them together.